This summer, we checked a big destination off of our list by taking a Baltic cruise. And today, we're going to tell you the good, bad, and ugly of Baltic cruises. Hey everyone, what's up? My name is Jordan.
And I'm Jared.
And this is JJ Cruise. Thank you so much for checking out the video today. We've put out a number of these good, bad, and ugly reviews, and we have another one coming in hot for you today. Our review of Baltic cruises.
But before we get into our Baltic cruise review, please subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and you can be a part of the first 50K. And while you're at it, hit that thumbs up.
By the end of this video, you are going to know everything that you must know before you take your Baltic cruise. That includes Baltic cruise tips, vital information about the ports that we stopped at, as well as answering questions like, who is a Baltic cruise even for? You'll want to make sure to watch all the way till the end because you'll hear one thing that really did put a damper on this cruise, and we wish we would have known before we ever cruised the Baltic.
And at the very end, we'll tell you if we will ever take a Baltic cruise again. Now, there's a lot of Baltic cruise itineraries out there, but we want to tell you what we did. First of all, we took our Baltic cruise in the month of July of 2023. On this Baltic cruise, we stopped at a lot of great ports. Our initial port was Southampton, England on Celebrity Silhouette cruise ship. The ports included Oslo, Norway, Copenhagen, Denmark, Stockholm, Sweden, Tallinn, Estonia, Helsinki, Finland, and Skagen, Denmark. This itinerary for a Baltic cruise is something that is pretty normal, but there are a lot of other destinations you could stop at depending on the cruise line or cruise of choice.
Let's start this review by talking about the good. Of course, we're also going to talk about the bad and the ugly, but we're going to jump right in by answering the question, who is a Baltic cruise even for? When we got on the Celebrity Silhouette, like Jared said, we were there in the month of July. Now, this was in the middle of summer, so of course, a lot of people were on school break, and we were surprised that there was quite a few families on board.
We say we're surprised because this was a longer itinerary. Usually with Celebrity or any kind of premium cruise line, any cruises over 8 nights is gonna have a more older audience or older crowd on board. This was not the case at all for this cruise. We have families of all ages, from little kids all the way up to grandma and grandpas and great-grandparents. We had people not just from the UK, but all over Europe, the United States, Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, you name it, there is probably someone on board on this cruise.
It didn't take long to answer the question why there were so many families on board. And that's because this tivnerary is diverse. We found every single stop of the way, there was a variety of different things to do. Even in Copenhagen, there was Tivoli Amusement Park, which was great for families. So the Baltic Sea itinerary definitely offers a variety of different types of activities and places to see, and a large amount of cities that are great for families to explore.
So who is this really for? Really, it's good for everyone of all ages. As long as you're interested in cities, this is a really good itinerary for you. We found that this is really good for a lot of different people of all ages because this itinerary being so diverse included newer cities like Oslo, Norway, to ancient or more medieval cities like that of Tallinn, Estonia. Kind of giving you a diverse, different take on different city life, whether it is a newer country like Estonia to one of the older countries on the list as well.
What made this itinerary so unique was docking directly in modern cities. Now, this is very different from cruising in the Caribbean or cruising in the Mediterranean, where you're visiting a lot of ancient cities. A lot of the cities were very similar to Auckland, New Zealand. We visited there last year, where you pull right into town and you get to explore these cities with skyscrapers that are very new, with a lot of very interesting and unique things to do.
Along with these modern cities comes the modern take on the modern world. And that is that there is a lot of inclusiveness. This includes LGBTQ plus businesses. We were loving the fact that at every port we could find an LGBTQ plus restaurant, bar, or maybe even like a business like a bookstore to go and support. Obviously, being the couple we are, we love this, and this isn't found everywhere around the world, so we are pleasantly surprised and very happy to see this.
Something else that we love to see is that on this specific itinerary, There was no tendering. No tendering means that it was very accessible for all. We always try to look out for everyone and what cruising into certain parts of the world means for them. No tendering means everyone could get off and on the ship directly into town very easily.
Now, of course, we'll talk a little bit later about there were some shuttle buses or buses you might have to take for some ports, but in general, very accessible and a very easy place to get off and roam. We cannot talk about the good without talking about the unique eats. Some of these eats in this area are just so unique to the culture of the places we're visiting. And that includes even stuff that you can find in IKEA, like the Swedish meatballs and lingonberry. They're much better, I think, at Stockholm than they are in IKEA. But we also had things like elk, bear, rose, pudding, just some amazing, unique eats from the area that really mesh with the historic culture, and we absolutely love it.
I am not a seafood eater, but Jared is, and I do think that he got some of the best seafood he has ever had in his life at these port cities in the Baltic. So for those of you that are seafood eaters out there, definitely go on this cruise ready to eat some good seafood. Something we found interesting and important to note when it comes to taking a Baltic cruise is the amount of education that you will find in these port cities. These are cities with quite a bit of history, and the amount of museums and cultural centers and information that you will find at these destinations will be quite a bit more than many other destinations around the world.
These range from all different types of museums, everything from medieval history to children's museums to even that of ABBA. So you can really find any kind of different type of interesting fact or educational tool that you'd like to learn about pretty much throughout all of these cities. Now let's move into the bad, and we'll talk about the ugly at the end of the video. But what are the things that you need to know before going on your first Baltic cruise? First and foremost, we've said it a lot in the good, but this can also be a bad. It is all cities. These are all modern day cities with all of the things you can see in major metropolises. What does that mean? It's not going to be your local remote village or your local island where there's a lot of different things to do during the day that are just relaxing on a beach, going and grabbing a sangria at a patio that's overlooking the ocean. It is really more centered on a metropolis.
For some, that's going to be a very good thing. For others, the lack of diversity in the types of places that you visit could be seen as a bad. For us, we do both love cities, but we know that not everyone is a city person. So we do think that it's something that you need to consider before taking a Baltic cruise. While most of the ships do dock into town, like we said, again, with these being cities, they don't always dock directly at the city center. Something else that you must know is at multiple different ports, there may be a shuttle bus to take you from the ship into town, and often it does come with an extra cost. We found that it tended to be between 12 and 15 USD per person, and that would be round trip to get you into town and back to the ship before all aboard time.
A good cruise tip here is if you're interested in a hop-on, hop-off bus, a lot of times those came close or right to the ship as well. So don't spend the cost of the shuttle if you find out there's a hop-on, hop-off bus that you're gonna go to anyways. Another bad or thing you just need to know before you go is this is Northern Europe. Northern Europe. So it's gonna be a cooler climate. It's not going to be as hot as the Mediterranean can get during the summer or the Caribbean for those coming from the North America region. And a lot of people were taken aback at how cool it can get. We actually got pretty lucky and had beautiful weather most of our days, but the cooler climate can creep up on you. And if you don't have a jacket or some kind of layer, it might be a little cold throughout the day, and that is never welcomed by surprise.
We do want to clarify that this isn't necessarily like Alaska or northern Norway cold, but more cool. I would plan for multiple days to be in the 60s. So a light jacket or a sweatshirt would be something that you would want to pack for your Baltic cruise.
Another bad or something that was hard to keep track of was the different currencies at every single port. This is not like a Mediterranean cruise where the euro is king and you can really use a euro at all your ports. Almost every port had a different type of currency, so you couldn't just pull out a lot of money all at once. And to be fair, most of them took credit card and preferred credit card, so that's what you should do. But if you ever want small bills for some of those small local shops that only take local currency, it really wasn't easy to do.
Jared said that for the most part we had great weather, and we really did. However, the weather in the Baltic can be very temperamental, and unfortunately out of the 12 days, we had 2 days of storms. The worst part was these were 2 of our port days. So our day in Stockholm and our day in Helsinki, it rained and rained and rained the entire day, which really did limit the amount of things that we could do. We would recommend bringing things like rain jackets and umbrellas with you into port, especially if you see some clouds in the sky, because you are, of course, right on the Baltic Sea, and you never know when the weather could take a major turn for the bad.
This next bad is something we were shocked by, and we still don't know to this day why it was bad. That comes with the Wi-Fi. This is Starlink, and Wi-Fi has been great ever since Starlink has come. You sure might have a bad day or two, but it was miserable the last half of this cruise when we were right next to major modern cities. The best Wi-Fi we got was from Southampton all the way to Oslo, and then from Skagen back to Southampton, and we were really confused at why that was.
We actually had done a cruise on this ship right before. We were on a back-to-back over to Iceland, and the Wi-Fi actually was better on that part of the trip than it was in the Baltic. So we do think this may be a regional specific thing and not necessarily a ship thing, since we didn't have as many issues for the first part of our trip. Let's get into the ugly. I think that we've taken enough time on the bad. The ugly was something that was actually pretty disappointing for Jared and I, and we just felt like for the planning of this cruise, there was just terrible timing. And that had to do with the specific times that we were in port on any given day.
Yes, our ugly is not having enough time at these cities. And being more specific, it is actually the fact that the time we had there was during the normal business hours of the day. Given the fact that these are modern day cities, people were at work. You didn't really get the local culture of the people because everyone was busy at their corporate offices during the day at a desk, and they go out at night. We were lucky enough to be in Copenhagen overnight and had a blast. So we really highly recommend taking this cruise to find out what places you'd want to go and travel back to on a land vacation.
Jared and I love cities, and we love exploring cities at night when we can mix and mingle with the locals. Like he said, we were really thankful to get to do this in Copenhagen, but these cities are so close together, we don't understand why the port days aren't longer or potentially have adjusted hours where you're there in the evening. I think that's the biggest thing we would want to see if we ever did take a Baltic cruise again.
Yeah, ideally, we would have taken the time that we were in port and just shifted it 4 to 6 hours later, and then arrive at the next port 4 to 6 hours later. Because in the morning, there wasn't a lot to do. So might as well do it in the afternoon into the late evening so we can really get the full culture. So will we ever do this again?
This is a hard question because we don't regret taking this cruise at all. We actually are very glad that we took this cruise because we got to learn so much about these destinations. I think next time we visit the Baltic region though, we'll probably do it on land.
That being said, we wouldn't know where we wanted to go and visit again on land without taking this cruise. So we're very, very grateful we took this cruise and very happy to know the best places in the Baltic.
If you're interested in cruising the Baltic, please feel free to reach out to us. Both myself and Jared are travel agents, and you can head over to jjcruise.com to get more information on taking your Baltic cruise. It's a great cruise. We don't regret taking it at all, and we would be more than happy to help get you there in the future.
Now, we know we gave a lot of cruise tips and our cruise review for the Baltic, but let us know your comments below. Have you done a Baltic cruise, or have you done a lot of research on an upcoming Baltic cruise? Let us know your comments below. We love to hear from you.
Thanks so much for watching, and until next time,
See ya!